lesson in Adobe Photoshop. Today we're going to focus on just the fill tool and the gradient tool. So I'll start with a regular document, just a blank document. So when you go to File New, if you have some recent document sizes, you just click any of hit create. If there's nothing here, you're brand new to Photoshop and you haven't had any recent items, you'll have to click out to where it says print and then select letter size and hit create. If you're not using a great computer, you might want to bring your resolution down a little bit, but I'll just leave it 8.5 by 11 is not bad. So we're just going to hit create and you get a blank brand new document. So the tools we're going to focus on are located about halfway down the toolbox, and because you don't really use the paint bucket tool all that much, the gradient tool is the one that will be available on your screen unless you've been in here and have used paint bucket tool as your last tool. So I'm going to show you paint bucket tool, and I'm going to show you other ways to use paint bucket, which is probably why Photoshop has buried it beneath the gradient tool in the toolbox. When you want to fill in an area, so we're just on a background layer, like there's nothing here, and I just want to change the color of this background to a color. You can go down to where your colors are, and this is your foreground color, this is your background color, and I double clicked on the foreground color to open up the color picker window. Inside the color picker window, you can change your hue and move your this controls the saturation and brightness of the color, and you can pick any color you want. This is like a very complicated set of crayons right there. So here we go. I picked this nasty green color and I want to fill it, so I have my paint bucket tool. I go out and I click on my screen and it fills it in completely. If there is a photograph involved, you would probably want to fill on a different layer. Unless there was a section of the photograph for some reason you wanted to fill, you would have to worry about your tolerance. So tolerance would work where if you had a picture and say it's a sky or something and you click in there and only part of the sky is getting filled, you might have to increase or decrease your tolerance because that's a range of pixels. Alright, so the paint bucket tool works by just clicking on your screen. If I change my color right now, and I want to show you a different way to fill it, there's a key command. It's Option or Alt and Delete that will fill your screen with the color. So Option or Alt Delete will fill your screen with your foreground color. Command or Control Delete will fill it with the background color. So that's just good to know. So if you ever just want to make a new layer and then fill it with a color, you could just hit Option Delete on the keyboard and it'll fill it in. The other place to fill things is under the Edit drop-down menu. So Edit, Fill, ... And in this window, and this is where very often you'll go, you can fill it with either foreground or background color, which we know the key commands for now, or you can go to where it says Color, and now you can pick a color without changing your foreground or background colors in the toolbox and click OK. So you can also go to Edit, Fill, ... And you could, pick a pattern. All right, there's some preset patterns in here. Okay, if there's custom patterns that you've created, you might find them in here. And you could pick a pattern and click OK, and it'll fill it with the pattern. Okay, there's like tree patterns and stuff in there, which I don't know if you would ever really use that, but they're there. And the other thing under Edit Fill is the content aware. Okay, so if you have an area selected and you want to use content aware fill, you can use that there. And there's black, 50% gray, and white. So this is a good place to go to fill in your fill as a fill tool. Okay, is under Edit Fill. Gradients are in the same toolbox. So I click and hold on the paint bucket tool in the toolbox, and I go and I find gradient. Once I have gradient, the options bar at the top of the screen changes like it does for every tool, and you can click on a gradient to edit it. You can click on the little drop down menu to pick a, there's all these cool folders and preset gradients in here, so I'm just going to pick this one here. And when you go out on your screen and click and drag a line with the gradient tool, it'll fill it with that gradient. There's 5 different types of gradients. There's your linear, and there's the radial gradient. Okay, And you can experiment with these other angled ones and reflected ones. They all do slightly different things. Mostly, most of the time we'll be using linear and radial gradients, but there are occasions where these other gradients might come into play. If you need to reverse the gradient for some reason, there's a reverse check mark over here. Okay, and that will reverse the gradient. This was a reflected gradient. So this is good for making like a sky and water reflection type thing. Dithering really doesn't really change much in the appearance on your screen, just change the way the edges of the gradient are blended. So, dithering will prevent like the banding of the colors that you might see in your gradient a little bit. So dithering is like a wavering type of application of gradient. The mode is important. So very often if you have the mode set to a different layer blend mode, that it would like kind of react in a different way, okay? And it could get ugly in a hurry and you might end up actually losing your whole gradient. So let me undo that. Some of these will make nice effects because they'll work in company with what is there already, okay? And you could do some interesting things with gradients for making backgrounds and stuff like that. Difference is always a great one to mess around with gradients. So, the more I click and drag on the screen, the more of these crazy weird shapes are being made because it's interacting with what's there already. So each time you're drawing it, it's blending it with what's underneath. Okay, so every gradient's getting applied and you get kind of this like trippy looking background going on. If you're ever messing around with your blend modes here, I would definitely change it back when you're done because your tool's going to be set like that the next time you come in and you go to use a gradient and you'll end up with the wrong thing. So make sure you make that back to normal.